This morning I'm accompanied by Carmen Serrano Garcia, Ignacio Serrano, and Anthony Serrano, the parents and brother of Yanira Serrano. We were here this morning to announce the filing of a federal lawsuit. That lawsuit was filed this morning at 10 o'clock at the San Francisco District Court, the federal court there. The shame of this all, folks, is that there are about 25% of our population suffers from mental illness, and about 9% of the population suffers from serious mental illness. That is an illness that causes an incapacity. Yanira suffered from such a disability. She was schizophrenic since the age of 15. The Sheriff's Department was aware of that. They had visited her on three prior occasions without incident. On June 3rd, her brother, as he had done before, called the Sheriff's Department asking for medical help. He was crystal clear in stating, this is not an emergency. My sister is schizophrenic and we need medical assistance. A paramedic was dispatched. Within 5 minutes, Yanira was dead. She was shot once in the chest and died there. The lawsuit alleges that the shooting was unconstitutional. The fact of the matter is there was no reasonable basis to shoot her. Yanira Serrano was 5 feet tall. She weighed 200 pounds. She had a congenital birth defect, essentially a club foot. She couldn't run. She was overweight. She had a club foot. There was no meaningful threat to the officer. But let me take a step back and give you the details of what happened that night. The dispatcher, I believe it was dispatcher 215, was a dispatcher that was undergoing training that evening. We've provided you with flash drives with the 911 call. If you listen to it carefully, you could hear a voice kind of over the person's shoulder that is taking the dispatcher through the call. The shameful part of it is if there was a trained, capable dispatcher under these circumstances, it might have been a good idea for that trained individual to take over. Nonetheless, what was reported was a medical emergency. During that conversation, they asked Tony Serrano, the brother who was making the phone call, if Yanira was being violent. His answer was yes. They asked for clarification, well, what do you mean by violent? He said, well, she's yelling at my mom. Does she have any weapons? No. 3 deputies responded to the call. The first deputy that was actually assigned to the call got lost. The second deputy that was to provide support got lost. Deputy Menh responded as the second assisting deputy. He did not communicate his presence here. He did not follow protocol. His obligation was to sit, wait, not only for the initially responding units, but also for the supervisor, a sergeant that was en route. Instead, he did what he wasn't supposed to do. He entered into immediately, running into an explosive situation. Yanira wasn't taking her medication that night. She was on a psychiatric medication that caused her, frankly, to feel bad, to physically feel bad. She didn't want to take her medicine that night. After some cajoling, and while Tony was on the 911 call, she took her medicine. And in fact, if you listen again to the 911 call, you could hear Tony, who's standing outside of the house, tell the 911 operator, we're good. She's taken her medicine. Okay? They were going to go down to a coffee shop and have some coffee and further calm her down. Okay? The 911 operator told him, don't go. Okay? She's in the car. Well, sit tight. We have police coming. Yanira, after taking her medication, because of the nausea that it caused, went to get some fruit. She grabbed the fruit. She had a knife and was going to open the fruit. And she sees the police officer from the window. She runs out, and she does have that paring knife in her hands. The police officer is charging towards her. He sees her and begins to back up. And he begins to back up and keeps about 10 feet of distance between her and him. The distance is approximately 60 feet. Okay. He continues to back up. Listen to the 911 tape. There are no orders, there are no commands. And we know there are no orders because the only orders and commands that he gives are those to Yanira's mom and to Tony, who try to comfort their dying sister. The officer points the gun at them and refuses to let them comfort her. And then you hear his commands, loud and clear. Get back! Police, get back! Folks, it was way too late. There was nobody in the immediate vicinity. There was nobody he was protecting. He created the threat. He created the emergency. He created the danger. Had he received the training that he should have got after coming here from Millbrae, as you might all know, the Sheriff's Department has engaged in a program of absorbing the local police departments. It's kind of a land grab, let's say, an authority grab. Millbrae, San Carlos, Half Moon Bay, they've absorbed 150 officers. They take them as laterals. They don't give them any training other than sending them to the jail for a perfunctory stay there, and then they put them on patrol. There's a required CIT, crisis intervention training, that the officers are supposed to have, and the sheriff will tell you, we didn't give him that necessary training. Folks, it is an act of deliberate indifference. The sheriff and the Sheriff's Department does not care about the safety of mentally ill persons, okay? If it wasn't for that lack of attention to something as important as the CIT training, Yanira would still be with us and we wouldn't be here, okay? He would have followed the protocol, he would have followed his training, he wouldn't have gotten out of his patrol car, he certainly wouldn't have interjected himself in something that was potentially explosive. And that's the shame of it all. It is truly, truly a shame.